I did it again. I left North America to travel the world, and this time is a little bit different. This time, I do not have a return ticket. And I like this video. It's going to be a little different than my other videos, but it's going to be a bit more just speaking from the heart, kind of just explaining what is going on in my life, explaining on why I decided to quit everything, leave everything behind, and start this new chapter, this new page, and embark on this journey. I'll explain to you how I did it, why I did it, and just what's going on, what's happening. Anyways, let's dive into it. I'm going to split this video up in a couple chapters, and the first chapter I'm going to start with mental health. And it's kind of just a story on myself and how I've gotten to this place in my life of just picking up whenever and just leaving and just living a life of freedom. So it all started when I was about 18, 19. I got a job in a trade as a millwright. And for about a year and a half, I was doing this, and I was very, very unhappy. I struggled a lot with addiction, alcoholism, and mental health has always been a thing from the past that I never really knew what it was at that age. I never had awareness of what mental health was. But at 18, it started to come to the forefront, like, holy shit, okay, I have these addiction to these things, and I'm very unhappy, and I don't really want to be in this body anymore. I don't really want to be on earth anymore. So I came to this point where I needed something different, and I needed a flick. I needed something. So I was following videos at the time, like travelers, and I just noticed how they're living a different life. And I said, why not give it a shot? So what did I do? I booked a two-way ticket. So I booked a ticket to Nicaragua. Nicaragua was a couple hours away from Canada. It was a 3-4 hour flight, so it was pretty easy to get to. And I had $1,500 to my name. So that's all I had. I had nothing else. And I said, I believed in myself. So I grabbed that $1,500. I booked a two-way ticket. I think the ticket was $300-$400 round trip. And I went to Nicaragua. I was about 19, 20 years old at the time. And it was a pure backpacking trip. So I grabbed my backpack. I threw everything that I had in my backpack. And I just left. I have never been out of the country. And I did it completely alone. And the reason why is because for 2 years before that, I tried to get my friends to come with me. I tried to get people to come with me. And I was terrified to do things alone. I've never in my life did anything alone. I was terrified. But I realized that by waiting for people, I then kept pushing my dreams and myself farther and farther. So what did I do? I said, I'm going to do this alone. And that trip, that 3-week trip, changed everything for me. It opened my eyes up to a whole new world, a whole new opportunity. And there was a quote on a wall that I read when I was traveling. And it was, we do not travel to escape life. We travel for life, not to escape us. And that quote has never left my heart, has never left my soul. I now travel for life, not to escape us. I was in a very small town, in a very small bubble. I did not think there was anything outside of my little bubble. There was maybe 300,000 people in my little small town. And I thought that was it. Once I started to travel, go into an airport, be very uncomfortable, fly to a different country where I don't even speak the language, where I don't know anybody or anything. How do I even get around? Back then, which was 10, 12 years ago, the phones weren't as developed and there wasn't GPSs everywhere you go, and I didn't have much of information or education around traveling. So I would go on chicken buses, and I figured it out, and I just put myself in an uncomfortable situation. And because I was uncomfortable for 3 weeks, the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life, it pushed me and it pushed my mindset to expand, and it developed deeper awareness on what is possible, meeting people who are living a totally different lifestyle, who have really nothing, and they're so freaking happy. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And I started to open up to them and talk to them and learn more about them and their culture. And everything, all my problems and everything that I made a big deal about and I attached myself to started to dissipate. I started to leave my soul because all the things I made a big deal about was actually not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And that's what traveling did for me. And I came back to Canada after those 3 weeks, and my eyes were opened. I met so many cool people on the trip. I met so many travelers and explorers and backpackers, and I just saw a different world. I met people from Australia. I met people from Canada. I met people from England. I met people from all over the world that showed me that there is more to life. And because of this, I'm sitting here today as happy as I could ever be, still exploring the world and being comfortable being uncomfortable. I love being uncomfortable. It's what I thrive for. And it's all because of that one trip I took when I was 19 years old. So this is the second chapter of this video. So I came back home and now the healing journey started. I wasn't completely conscious or aware of it, but subconsciously I was aware of what was happening. I started to read books. I started to listen to more podcasts instead of listening to music 100% of the time. I started to include podcasts. I started to be more curious. That's the word, curious. I was curious on what else is there out there. And because I was curious, there's a peak of curiosity, I started to want more. I left my job. I actually moved to Toronto, so a big city, a big town of like 1 million plus. I left the small town. I went back to school for business because I realized that I loved talking to people. When I went traveling, I realized that I adored meeting new people. So I went into business where I spent 4 years, and I got my degree in marketing and business. And I killed it. It was amazing. And that was after I failed college the first time. But this time, I went with more drive, more energy. I graduated, all cool. And then I got a job in Toronto. I spent about a year in Toronto. But during that time, I kept traveling. You know, I went to the US. I went to California. I went to Colorado. I went to Hawaii. I went to Costa Rica. I went to South Korea. I was still dabbling around with traveling once a year. I was still doing things, but I still wasn't happy. My mental health wasn't as severe. I kicked my addiction aside, so I was no longer addicted to drugs. I was no longer addicted to alcohol. I was still drinking, but I was no longer addicted to substances. I was no longer addicted to certain things. So there was improvement in my year to year. And my mental health was still there though. And I couldn't figure out why. So now let's fast forward to 28 years old. And so we fast forward 8 years. I did schooling, I did all that stuff, and I took another trip. This was a 9-month trip. I had about $7,000, $8,000 that I had saved for this trip. I had my investments, I had my other savings, but there's about $8,000 that I put away to do this trip. And I did my budget, and I did the calculation, and I was able to travel for 9 months in Asia with $7,000 to $8,000. So I started the journey. Bali was always a place I wanted to come to. It is the spirit island of the world. They've called it that for so long, the island of the gods. And as always piqued my interest on why. So what did I do? I booked a ticket to Bali and I spent 4 to 5 months there. And that changed everything for me on so many different levels. Again, I'm very uncomfortable, very unknown, a 30-hour flight from Canada to Indonesia to Bali. So a whole other, it's not just a 3 or 4 hour flight here. This is all across the other side of the world. So it's a whole other thing. I rented a scooter and I made a commitment to myself to master the art of boredom, to fall in love with being with myself, to fall in love with just being bored, and to being okay with being very present, very still, and very mindful. And that's where I got deep into Buddhism. That's where I got deep into self-mastery. That's where I got deep into neuroscience, the brain, how the brain works, and all that kind of stuff. 5-ish months in Bali, and then I flew across to Nepal. Once I got to Nepal, I did 14-day trek to Mount Everest, the base camp, not the mountain, the base camp. So it was a 14-day trek where you're hiking for 8 to 10 hours. You're trekking every day. You stop to this little hut in the middle of the Himalayas, sleep, wake up, start trekking again for 14 days. It was absolutely bonkers. And right after that, I did a 30-day retreat in a monastery. This was a retreat where I spent time with 450 monks. And I just engrossed myself in that environment. And what happened after that was breathtaking. It was 10 days of studying the Buddhism, studying what Buddhism is and just the root of it, and how to handle suffering, how to handle happiness, what is suffering, what is happiness. And I was able to really understand it on a deep soul level, a spirit level. And what happened there was just pure blissfulness. I left that 30 days and I just felt so happy and so content and so confident, and just found myself. I found myself in the experience, and I noticed that we need to create our life. We need to create our happiness. We are in full control of everything that we put out. And since then, I was so in love with exploring the world and the planet. And I realized that if I was born 4,000 years ago, I'd be an explorer. And why can't I be a modern day explorer? So I said, I'm going to be a modern day explorer. I came back home. I started to study more and more about just life in general and what I can do next. And this is where I am now, about launching a YouTube channel, a YouTube journey. I noticed that there's 3 stages to life, and this is a philosophy that I built called the Heal, Build, Be. I noticed that I need to spend 8 years healing myself. That's how long it took me, and I'm still healing every day, and I'm always going to heal. But I'm currently in the healing journey, but the first 8 years was deep in the healing. And then I realized that to be able to be, right, to be present, to be still, I need to build. And I healed first, and now I'm building. I'm building the life that I want. I'm creating me. And by able to do that, I can then be. I can be still because I'm just present in my life. So right now I'm building, I'm creating. And this is why I came back to this trip. I came back, not trip, but I came back to explore with no return. I put $25,000 aside. I just got married a couple weeks ago, and she also put $25,000 aside. So we have $50,000 Canadian. And we said, let's go with no return. Let's go till our budget runs out, which I'm very good with money, in my opinion. I'm big on a budget. I've been budgeting for a long time. And from my calculations, $50,000 can last us about 2 years. So stay tuned, and let's find out if that $50,000 lasted 2 years. It's very unconventional because people our age, right, I'm 30, would grab $50,000 and go on a down payment on a house and would start that journey, right? That journey is not for us, for me. I discovered that that is not my happiness, and that's cool. That's okay. That's what I want. That's what I like. So there's no right or wrong here. You have to do what is right for you, and this is right for me at this stage of my life, and I'm super stoked about it. Not a single regret or thought about it. So we have 50 grand, making the last 2 years, and I'm back now because now what I'm going to do is there's a whole new inspiration, motivation, and it's to just create videos in hope to inspire others to find themselves by creating themselves, by healing themselves, because that's what I did. I traveled, I explored, I went deep into myself. I did so many healing remedies, and I was able to heal all my mental health, all naturally, with no medication, no chemicals, no doctors, no nothing, just all naturally by just getting deep and doing some crazy, crazy stuff, some hard stuff, some very, very hard stuff, the hardest thing ever, right? I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's so easy, just travel. No, it's the hardest thing ever. And it's commitment and consistency that is required. But the whole point that I'm coming here now and going online and sharing my message is in hope to inspire people to take the leap, to take the chance, to just fall in love with themselves, to fall in love with being bored, to fall in love with just being present with themselves. And this is the first video of my journey. I'm going to continue posting about mindfulness and self-development and healing, and just continue to post about what makes me happy and what has brought me happiness, in hope that it brings somebody happiness, and hope that it inspires somebody to take control of their lives. Because in the end, we have full control. Nobody can decide for us. It's hard, it's difficult. We have to commit, we have to make a plan, we have to budget. Like, there's a lot of pieces to this. Anyways, I'm starting to rant now, but I'm just super excited, and I was really stoked to make this video. And I know it's just the beginning, and thank you again for coming along this journey with me. I deeply appreciate, guys. So much gratitude for what we're building together. And again, like I always say in my other videos, if you have any questions or anything that you want to know more about, please reach out. I'm always here with open arms to chat. Anyways, much love. Talk soon.